Hey guys, I am so excited today. I have someone here with me that you guys all know and love, LL Farms, or Justine is her name, and she is part of the Steem Alliance, which a lot of you guys probably have seen or maybe you have questions on. And so that's why Justine and I are going to chat today just to answer some of your questions and help you learn a little bit more about the Steem Alliance. So, Justine, thanks so much for joining me.
Leah, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it. This trying to get the word out and getting everyone to understand is a huge goal for us. So I really appreciate you taking the time to have me.
So I thought that it would be great if we could just kind of start out with a little backstory and a little overview. So how did the STEAM Alliance come to be? What exactly is it? And if you could just tell us a little bit about the project in general, that would be awesome.
The Steem Alliance sort of just came about as an idea. Many times people have talked about how a foundation would be beneficial for Steem. There's a couple other blockchains out there that do have foundations mixed with some sort of worker proposal system. And the idea was thrown around here on Steem quite a bit. This specific idea came from Ned, Steem and Inc. randomly saying, hey, this is something we've been thinking about. We'd really like the community to run with it. Who could you sort of see helping that happen? A few names were thrown out. Those names ended up in a Slack room, and the idea was we wanted it to be open and transparent. So immediately went to an open Discord, and then nominations happened, and we had a working group, and then we had another working group. But the idea here is to help the community build a foundation to put Steem in the mainstream market, to really be the face of the chain, become a combined effort for the community to get things done, get their voices heard, get ideas to have funding, and really become not only a funding mechanism, but also a collaboration of the community itself to work on all different aspects that would actually improve Steem as a whole.
Maybe we could break it down even one level further. What exactly is a foundation?
Well, the foundation itself, so a foundation could be many different things. And so that question, even the term foundation has some real world meaning to it. Here, what we mean is a group of individuals. It could be a legal entity. It could be have some sort of third party that works as the legal entity that individuals can donate to. Steem and Inc. has actually committed to donating to this specific foundation, and that's where this came about. And that could be a group of individuals that work on the blockchain to improve it. It could be something more in the real world terms. So the word foundation is difficult because it means something legally in the real world that may not fit into what the community chooses here. But the idea would be more of a group of individuals with funding, the community coming together to achieve things that could be, I've been giving examples of marketing a lot because I think it's something that's missing. So as an example, if the community had an idea for a marketing campaign and they needed to come together with funding to actually implement this could be a place that the foundation would step in. Being the face of the chain for PR reasons, getting out there and actually explaining what Steem versus Steem is, what the Steem blockchain is. I mean, even simple things like the Wikipedia page. This could all be taken care of by a foundation. It could be a place that helps with onboarding. Steem onboarding, I hope, will be sort of a partner in this or part of the community foundation itself, and to actually get the community involved to help with user retention, help with information, sort of crowdsourcing all these things that we see missing from Steem, and doing it together in a bit of an organized way on the blockchain. That's sort of the idea. As far as what exactly the foundation is, or a foundation in general, we don't quite know because the structure is still being decided by the community, which is what's making this all a little bit confusing. Is the community is putting together proposals for the structure of this foundation to show what it will look like, what it will do, and how exactly it will work. So I don't have an answer for exactly what it will be because we're still deciding that.
So is that what we're going to be voting on? So I know that the voter registration closes in a few days, which is another reason why we wanted to have this chat now, just to help even more people find out about it and to make sure they register in time. So for those of you watching, April 4th is when the registration closes. But is that what we're going to be voting on, is what that structure is going to look like?
Yes, so the upcoming election, which like you said, the registration is over on April 4th. The election itself will be about a week after that, and it will be a week-long election. So after you register, or even if you're registering today, you're not quite sure what the proposals are, that's okay, you still have time. So if you register, then you can take the time to actually learn about these proposals. Hopefully myself and some other individuals will be helping to break those down a little bit. But the next vote that's coming up will be for what structure idea the community wants to see. The next step would be whatever group is chosen or whatever idea is chosen, they'll have to sit down and figure out the legalities of it all. You know, there's going to be a lot of specifics that have to go into this. They'll sit down with Stevie and kind of start hammering those out. It might have to evolve a little bit. Someone's going to have to build it. So there's going to be a lot that happens after that. Right now, we as a community are saying what we want it to look like. So as an example, there is one proposal that says there's no leadership whatsoever. There's working groups or groups of individuals that just come together naturally. There's some specifics that you have to achieve to be able to be in a working group, but it's just coming together. There's other leadership styles. So there would be boards, there would be all sorts of different leadership levels in the foundation. So what we're really looking at is what kind of foundation we want and what do we want it to do. Some are focused on outreach to the governments in the US to kind of teach them about blockchain, to build a bridge there. Others are focused on maybe development of code, opening up the repo to community developers so that we get things done a little bit quicker as far as marketing, PR. So all of that's being sort of discussed in the structures. That doesn't mean that what's not in there won't be a part of the foundation, but what we're doing as a community is saying, we like this idea, we like that this one has this sort of accountability and transparency, or we like this style a little bit more, and then the next step would be to actually build it. So register to vote or you don't get to vote. And then the election that's coming up will be choosing what we as a community want to see this foundation look like. And then it will evolve and build from there.
So how exactly does the voting work? Is it every vote counts as one, or is it kind of like witness voting where depending on your Steem power it's weighted? Is it just each Steemian gets one vote and that's the way the voting is working?
So the voting was actually probably the most interesting aspect of all of this. And it's something we haven't even specifically come to an end result on because there's so many things that go into that. So we are on I can't even talk today. We are on a proof of stake platform. So we knew that stake weighted had to be part of it somehow. And a lot of people don't quite understand the reason for that. But some of the issues are we give away free accounts. So if it was one account, one vote, somebody who has 5,000 accounts now has 5,000 votes. And they could have no stake in that whatsoever. I could go buy 5,000 accounts right now, and then my vote is more than just one person. That's one issue with one vote, one person. Another thing is that in this sort of environment, those that are invested in it have a little bit more of a, there's challenges or there's things that they understand about it. Someone who just got here today, their decision-making skills might not be as best as someone who's committed to the platform. That doesn't always have to do with how much stake they have. I myself am not a very big account, so I do see that in the most simplest of terms, that we want someone who is informed about the platform making decisions, but we also want everybody's voice to be heard. So balancing that was very tricky. So I'm going to ramble on about the vote, so I'll get to it. So our idea right now is we're going to do a linear stake weight, which essentially means it's stake weighted, but there's a cap. What this will do is it will take the percentage that each tier of SP holders, trying to break this down, that the percentage of the vote that they would count for will be more equally distributed or balanced. So the most highest stake weighted accounts will not have all the say. That's been an issue that a lot of people were concerned about, that one or two accounts could come in and essentially control the election. So what we tried to do was balance the two, to make sure that the smaller accounts have a say, but that it's still going based on our proof of stake platform that we are on here. So what that would look like is anyone, so right now we're looking at 250K cap, which means that someone who has, let's say 500,000 Steem power, instead of their account counting for, let's say 44% of the vote, that size account, it would count for 11% of the vote or something to that extent. So it just throttles it down a little bit while letting everyone else also have a say. So instead of it being very top weighted, it's a little more balanced. That's the idea right now. what I'll say is there is no perfect answer to this, because one vote, one person has so many different issues, and pure stake weighted gives us what we have now as far as witnesses, which a lot of people think is unfair. So we as the working group are trying to find a balance for that, but it's not easy. And we've been working for a few months now on every single angle and every sort of situation that we can make it more balanced. And so we are doing our best to ensure that every voice is heard in the best way possible. And currently that looks like it will be a stake weighted with a cap, which will be a little bit different than what we're used to on the platform, and hopefully give it a more balanced approach.
That is super helpful. And one of the things that I think your answer really kind of says to me is just how much effort and energy you guys are putting into making this something that's for the community. Like the fact that this is something you guys have wrestled with so much and gone back and forth and really thought about, I think really speaks to the transparency and to the kind of community drive that you guys are looking to build here. And so next steps in terms of what's happening, I assume that kind of depends on which system gets voted in. So we have April 4th, the voting closes, and then we'll have about a week, and then people will vote for the kind of system that they like. And then after that, I know you've mentioned that the working group that you're part of that's currently building will be no longer. Can you kind of speak to what that transition will look like of how that system will get set up?
Yes, of course. And just so the April 4th will be the end of voter registration. And just to kind of clarify on that, a lot of people, it's just a deep poll. A lot of people don't quite understand why we did that. And one reason was to see if there would be any issues, to be perfectly honest, and to help spread awareness. So instead of someone just hearing about this when they go to vote, why don't we do a registration? We can rally people, and then they can have some time to learn about it. Because one thing we don't want is uninformed voters. We don't want people just showing up to vote to vote. We want them to know about it and make an informed decision. So it's just so we can foresee if there'd be any issues. It also will help with voting and kind of look at what the balance is in registered voters as well, to make sure that this idea that we have is going to work. And so that will be on April 4th, and that will end. And then at some point after that, the election will open, and there will be plenty of information about that, and it will be a week-long election, so there'll be plenty of time to vote, and it will also be on a deep poll. So as far as the working group itself, from the beginning, our job was, we want you to help facilitate this election and help to build the foundation or oversee it. And so our job is really to be the liaison for the community, to make sure the community's voice is heard, to keep it transparent, keep it accountable. And so the next step is very dependent on what the community chooses. There are a few proposals that have listed they would like the working group to stay on and kind of help start to build it. There's some that don't mention them at all. I've personally been reached out and asked if I would be interested in kind of helping that transition. And I think most of the working group that is active is open to that. But essentially what the idea is we are mothering this thing along. And so once the proposal has been chosen, we will start meeting with the individuals in that proposal, get them in tune with Steem and Ink. There'll have to be a lot of meetings happening, and just help that transparency stay. When that time is that our working group is no longer needed really just depends on the proposal group that the community chooses, and if there's still more work to do. So we don't really have a last day at this moment. So we're just playing it by ear, and it's up to the community. So if they no longer need us, we go away. If we're still needed after the proposal process to kind of continue to push it, we'll be there to do that.
And so one of the questions that it seems like a lot of people have had probably the most about the Steem Alliance are all of these different proposals. And I think you've mentioned there's about 10 right now, and that it can be a little bit confusing and overwhelming. And so maybe we could talk a little bit about like, how is that information going to be brought to Steem? Like, how are people going to be able to find some of that information out about the different proposals?
Yeah, of course. The first thing I would say is, if you look on the Steem Alliance blog, one thing we've been trying to be really careful about is we have a Discord server, but we also try to put all the information on the chain as well, because this is a blockchain. We want it there. There are links to every single one of the proposals there. We have asked them to do sort of an overview questionnaire so someone could easily read that and get a little bit more of an idea of what it would look like, because a lot of these are very technical. And even myself, who's been involved in the process from the beginning, will read some of them, and I still don't have a visual. I don't have a painted picture of what this foundation will look like. So we're working to kind of push them to do that a little bit more, but all the proposals can be found on the blog. I would suggest going there, trying to read the questionnaires at least. But something that the working group is in an odd situation is we're not making proposals. We are sort of this unbiased group that's helping it go along. So a lot of people have asked for us to explain the proposals to them. And it's hard for me because it's not my proposal. I can't share with you what my vision is. And a lot of times it's hard for me to break it down into such a small overview in my own words that I might be taking away from the proposal itself. So what I do want to say to anyone out there who is confused about it, register to vote, and you still have over a week and a half to figure out these proposals. And I myself, the working group, and the proposal teams are going to do our best to explain that. Maybe we kind of talked about it before, maybe doing a little pitch where the proposal teams have a short amount of time, we break it up and ask direct questions so that we can really get down to what these foundation proposals look like so that they can be easily compared. So if that's still a concern, I do want to tell the community that we are working on it. We hear you. It's just sort of an interesting situation because the proposal team should be the one having these discussions, but sometimes there's a difference of communication there, a communication style that makes it hard to explain to everyone in a way that we can all fully grasp it and compare easily. So we are working on it though.
Well, Justine, I just want to thank you so much for not only just joining and chatting and clarifying so many of the different aspects of the Steem Alliance today, but just in general, your work that you are doing on this project. And so thank you to you and all of the Steem Alliance working group team members that have been part of bringing this to life. This is one of those projects on Steem that I think is really exciting and is going to do a lot of good for the platform. And so we'll link below to the Discord that Justine that you mentioned and all of the team members so you guys can make sure that you're following and supporting all of these people that are working so hard behind the scenes to bring this to life. So Justine, thank you again so much for joining me.
Thanks so much for having me, and I appreciate you helping to get the word out.